Dive. 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 Dive.
Con sonar lost contact. Sierra 1. Last bearing 338. Contact
Reveille.
Baffles.
Reveille. Up all bunks.
Passing
Commence
700
field
feet.
day.
Don Wells passed away. Gosh, I guess it's been about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. And I have an excerpt out of my book, Bubbleheads, the Med Run, where we touched on that subject. And to set this up a little bit, this is a maneuvering watch, which involves reactor operator, electrical operator, EOW, throttleman. There's out in the spaces, engineering spaces, there's an EWS, there's an ERS, there's engine one up a level. Any of these could be like come by maneuvering at any time. Anyway, the discussion was, they were talking about, and you have to go back in your mind to 1981, because that is when this takes place, and we're discussing television shows with good-looking women in them. That's the topic of discussion. So it starts off like, then Burton, the throttleman, poked his head out of maneuvering, said, "Hold it. I don't remember her real name, but that woman who plays Bailey is a whole lot better looking than Lonnie." Now, of course, they're talking about WKRP in Cincinnati, and they're talking about Lonnie Anderson. Since Burton once told me he is head over heels in love with Jane Pauley from the Today Show, Bailey was a surprising choice. Maybe he goes for the serious, tomboyish types. Electrician mate 3, EM3 Daryl Burton, is an overly energetic guy from Arizona. I forget the town now. Seeing that he is chubby and bubbly, he was given the nickname Doughboy from the Pillsbury Doughboy. We just call him Dough. He's always cracking jokes or telling some funny story about growing up in Arizona. Why did the chicken cross the road? To show the armadillo how it's done. He has dirty blonde hair with freckles splattered under his eyes. If there's a party with a lot of laughter, Doughboy will be smack dab in the middle of it, wide-eyed and hands gesturing wildly as though they had a life of their own, as he recreates an unbelievable story that he's heard about or experienced, mostly experienced. Are they true stories? Maybe not, but who cares? They're entertaining. Sure, maybe in the face, Bernie granted, but I'm talking about the whole enchilada, the whole package, and he cupped his hands to give a more definitive description. That remark inspired a mini discussion among us watchstanders about the comparative attributes of Bailey and Jennifer, and then flowed into the eventual comparison of Ginger and Marianne, of course, from Gilligan's Island. However, this time Doughboy added a new twist. How come when we compare Ginger and Marianne, we always leave out Mrs. Howell? Well, first there was silence, and then someone laughed with a chorus of groans and remarks in the background about getting serious. Paying them no attention and going boldly where no man has gone before, Doughboy added, I don't think any of you have looked at her. I mean, really looked at her. If you think about it, she was the only one on that island that could actually have sex because she was married. Ginger and Marianne couldn't and probably wouldn't. I mean, look at their choices. You think Skipper or Gilligan had a shot with any one of them? Maybe the professor. Unless Ginger and Marianne were with each other, someone added. No way. In your dreams. You bet in my dreams. They stayed in the same tent. So did the Skipper and Gilligan, in your dreams. Ginger might, being from Hollywood and all that, but Marianne would never do that. Well, how do you know? Because she grew up on a farm in Kansas. Those values are different from those in Hollywood's. Farmer's daughter. Oh, yeah, sure. She's so innocent. Maybe you have a dirty mind. Guilty. Look, all I'm saying is that what Mrs. Howe brought to the island was civility. She was their culture. She was their civilization. If it wasn't for her, they might have all ended up like Lord of the Flies or something, which is reference to a book, way back when. She was probably a mother figure to Ginger and Marianne. Well, maybe mother is too strong, maybe more like an eccentric aunt. I think she helped them to remember that they were women, that they probably had long talks in the girls' hut. All right. And Doe shot Jake a dagger look. She reminded them to be strong and not fool around. She was charming, always in good spirits, and rich. And old. You into older women, Doe? Hey, Doughboy, stay away from my mom. Too late, Doughboy said.
So over here on my shelf behind me, I have my WKRP DVDs.
Yeah, I've got one of those.
I'm a Bailey Quarters guy.
Yeah, there you go.
About that. Mrs. Howell was rich. 2 ways about that.
She was rich. She was, and she was the only one that really had, well, besides Mr. Howell, could have sex on the island. So
you guys didn't really believe that, right? I mean,
well, back then, probably. I don't know.
Oh, nobody knew how old she was. Did you know that? The gal that played her, and I can't remember her name right now, but nobody actually knew how old she was. And she had in her contract that they could only use certain camera angles and they had to use soft lenses so she wouldn't look old.
Natalie Schaefer,
that's her. Yeah. And by all accounts, she was very, very ta-da,
could be
by all accounts. But yeah, I don't know. That's the eternal argument that we get to on Midwatches. I mean, there are some really weird conversations on Midwatches, but the Marianne Marianne Ginger conversation is always a classic go-to. Where do you come down on that, Steve?
Between them, it was always Marianne.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. I come from a small town also. I mean, 2,500 people. And I don't know. Ginger Grant seemed too Hollywood, or maybe I just thought, that I would have no shot with her whatsoever.
See,
maybe
that's the word I'm looking for. That's what makes it cool. Is that she's unattainable. I mean,
yeah.
Ginger Grant, man. I mean, even when she was on Married with Children 30 years later, she was still looking really.
She was.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was Tina Louise. Man, and of course Don Wells passed away. Last week, a week before last?
Yeah, something like that. And I saw a meme recently that showed a picture of Tina Louise saying, Survivor Gilligan's Island winner. I guess everybody else passed away.
Everybody else is gone now. The whole crew, and that's. I'll tell you what, Steve, those were some of the interesting conversations, and not just the Marianne Ginger element of it, but we would get off on tangents about things, not just, I mean, Gilligan's Island's a great starting point because we would get off on tangents about Gilligan's Island.
Yeah.
You almost want to stop in the middle of it and go, you guys do realize this is a TV show, right? This isn't real. This didn't really happen, because we would get into the whole, well, what would we do if, how would we make the coconuts into a nuclear reactor? How would we, why couldn't we build a boat?
I mean, the professor was able to get the radio going, but couldn't, figure out how to transmit, I guess, or it seemed like with the equipment that was still on the minnow, which would have some kind of transmitting equipment. Plus, he never, somehow or another, he created a way to keep charging that radio, because they had no electricity.
Right.
And solar power, I don't think was.
Didn't they have the bike thing that Gilligan would ride?
Yeah. You're right. You had the bike thing.
And I thought they did something with the transmitter one time. Didn't they? The skipper, right, off Guadalcanal had to repair the radio transmitter. And so they put him into a trance and it hypnotized him or something. And so he was repairing the radio in his sleep. He was doing the thing, and they had to scissors. And he would mock, fixing the radio, and they tried to fix the transmitter that way. And then Gilligan, of course, screwed it up because Gilligan screws up everything.
Well, of course.
Which is a great example of what we're talking about here, is that these Midwatch conversations that you could get onto were in some cases just bizarre and in some cases memorable. The Midwatch, for those of you who don't know, back in my day and Brock's day, I don't know now, I understand things have changed now, but back in our day, you had 3-section watches. So you stood 6-hour watches. So there was a midwatch, midnight to 6 a.m., then a morning watch, 6 to noon, afternoon, noon to 6, 18, and then 18 to 24. The midwatch was always, for us, it was the start of what we called a hydro. I don't know what you guys call it, but that was especially on a Wednesday. If you had the midwatch on Wednesday, because then you had the midwatch, so you were up, all night.
Mm-hmm.
Divisional training on Wednesday morning, and then you had drills on Wednesday afternoon, and then you came back on watch again at 1800. So it was the 24-hour day if you had Wednesday.
Yeah, you didn't hit your equalizer until like the weekend. Yeah,
Friday, Saturday, somewhere in there. And of course, Saturday was field day, so that wasn't going to happen.
See, we had field days on Friday.
Really?
Friday morning, yeah.
I would have much preferred that.
Yeah, we actually had the weekends off, or there was no drills or anything scheduled Saturday and Sunday.
Dang, man, you guys had it easy.
Yeah, easy.
How often do boomer guys get to say that about fast attack guys? So anyway, the midwatch was the time when, because there was nothing else going on.
No, it was pretty steady state.
So that's the time when conversations would turn to directions that might even, I don't even know where to begin with some of our conversations. Some of the best ones I remember are very personal. I mean, it was a time when you would find a surprising connection with somebody and you could talk about really weird things. And we were both, Brock, you and I were both very young. But so there's always that I'm missing somebody special conversation. And there's always the family conversation. I had a shipmate that had been estranged from his family. And so we would, on the Midwatch, we would regularly discuss and I'm talking about completely estranged. I mean, he completely cut off his family, parents, mother, father. And so we would have the conversations about why, and what are you going to do about it? Because you can't do that forever.
Yeah, you got to resolve it somehow, right?
Right. And so we would bounce off ideas about how he was going to resolve it. And of course, I don't know that he ever did. I have no idea if people change those things. I never saw that girl again that I was really missing. I don't know about you, but I never saw her again. And frankly, my life was better for it, although I would never have believed on some of those midwatches. She was the one, Brock. She was the one.
Yeah. Well, I was single, so,
So was I.
We was like, you would always think about like a girl that you had dated. It gives you a time to think about other things that you don't normally think about whenever you're in port. Because in port, you're always, trying to do something other than be at the boat, So when you're out there, then you start focusing in on, past relationships, past romances. Should I have dated her another time, or, gone out with her again, or, things like that, it's like, but you're right there. The midwatch, it was all steady state, and anything would come up. Food came up a lot.
Did it?
Oh yeah. We would talk about, because you miss, besides the ghee dunk that you brought with you, you miss the foods And boomers, y'all never pulled into port, but we would every once in a while pull into a port. But you miss the junk food. I mean, Dunkin' Donuts had I think they still do, but they call it something different. I think it was called a chocolate honey dip. It was a cake donut. It looked like it didn't have chocolate on it. It was chocolate all the way through it. Mm. And I really missed those when I was out at sea. So a friend of mine, or one of my shipmates there, was we talked about it, and we both were like, he had his favorite donut. So when we pulled into port, we both had duty. When you first pull in, they usually give the people off who are married,
right?
Because so they can go see their wives. And single guys, or even the single non-qualified guys, usually got stuck with duty. So we pulled into port, and then we got the first duty. And that morning when we got off at 8:00, man, we booked over to Dunkin' Donuts, and we gorged ourselves at coffee and donuts. It would kill my sugar right now. My diabetes would go, but
I can't remember where it was, because it's not where it is now here. But it used to be a McDonald's right off base, and this was in the age before they put McDonald's as on base for a while there.
Oh yeah,
which was even a dumber idea. The Navy's too fat. Hey, let's put a McDonald's right across the street from the barracks.
Exactly.
So, man, I used to miss McDonald's fries, and we would talk about McDonald's fries. And so you're right, single guys, when we would pull in, we would pull the duty. Usually, I didn't even complain about it, because I mean, what's the point? Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? Plus, we'd usually pull in the late afternoon, so it's kind of a ripoff anyway to go home that night, except for the obvious reasons. So, and I wasn't going home to Marianne or Ginger, so these French fries, man,
or Mrs. Howell,
or Bailey, or Lonnie. Anyway, so there was a McDonald's right off the base. It wasn't very far. It was close enough that you could get there and back to the boat in like 20 minutes. And so we would pull it as soon as they were all gone. It was just the duty section. We would call up the McDonald's, and we'd order a bag of fries, not a medium fry, large fry, a bag of fries. So one of us would grab the duty truck. We'd go up there and get it, man. That was so good. And those weeks of talking about those fries, and by the time you get them, you're like, man, these are going to be so good. And then they're always cold and mushy, and
they're not. By the time you get them, they're not as warm.
So disappointing. But those were some of the good topics. We had bad topics. I mean, some of the conversations I would get into, Brock, were just infuriating. I mean, just arguments about stupid crap. I mean, people, and I got into an argument about fluoride in Tacoma. Now, my residence was in Tacoma, and I had my absentee ballot waiting for me. And I get into an argument about whether or not Tacoma should fluoridate water. And this is like, you wouldn't believe the people who showed up on the Midwatch. Yeah, we were in port, granted, but on the Midwatch, people showing up to argue about whether or not Tacoma should fluoridate. People who, one, don't live in Tacoma, who don't care.
Yeah, they don't have a horse in that race.
No, but my God, that was the worst mistake I ever made, asking that question. Well, what do you think I should vote on here? Fluoridate the water or not? And just kind of throwing it out there. And I learned my lesson on that one, because politics, probably not the best subject for Midwatch talks, because even as people tend to think of the military as being very homogenous in its political views, but it's not. I mean, it's really not.
I don't even remember talking about politics when I was in.
Really?
In fact, I mean, I can't even remember. I mean, Reagan got shot when we were in, but I don't remember anyone saying, well, good. I hope they, shoot the rest of his family or something like that. If it was on the internet now, you
Right.
get all kinds of responses, and with fluoride too.
I wonder if that's because of the different nature of the missions. I mean, the Boomer obviously has a much more politically sensitive mission, I guess, than the fast boat does, the fast attack. And so we tended to be a little more in tune with things that were particularly foreign relations. We had a huge, we got told after about an hour of this one, we got shut down. The weapons officer told us to shut the hell up. When we bombed Libya, I think that was 85 or 80. I don't remember when it was, but we bombed Libya because of the nightclub attack or whatever. And you would have thought everybody would have been okay with that. But when you're sleeping between, 24 Trident C4 missiles, you start realizing that, the next ante in this pot is a little, it's a little steep.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe that's just the different way we looked at it. I mean, Ben was asking me questions this morning about Chernobyl. Hey, Dad, what's the coolest thing about Chernobyl? Well,
it's not the core.
Yeah. So we were at sea when that blew. And so I was telling him about the, being at sea and getting a call I was standing weapons tech that night. And I got a call from the chief of the watch because we're coming up to snorkel because we're getting ready to go alerts this last shift. So we're coming up to snorkel, recirculate a little bit. Chief of the watch calls me and says, I need an air sample.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, why? He says, what do you mean why?
Yeah, no. Why do you ask why?
Really, he says, don't you know what's going on in the world? Of course, we all knew what was going on in the world. I said, so what are we going to do if the sample's dirty? In other words, Chernobyl has irradiated us. And
right.
What are we going to do? And he looked at me and said a really bad word and told me to go do it anyway.
Yeah.
So 5 minutes later, I called him back, said air sample is satisfactory. I have no idea if it really was. I don't care, because what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Well, boy, we had a lot of conversations about Chernobyl, and I would imagine, we got into Russian submarines and Russia. We talked a lot about Russians, what we knew about the Russians, which I'm an FTB. Literally, I knew where Russia was. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about their boats, but boy, oh God, did I want to.
I wonder if this is more of a back aft forward Koner new thing, because when you're up forward in the forward part of the boat, you're around more of the happenings that are happening, like in the control room and things like that. Us back aft, we were just like, we're just trying to keep the screw going. So maybe we did talk politics back then, but I just don't remember, conversations about politics.
What's the strangest one you ever got into? What's you have one that really just weird? We had ghost stories, for God's sakes.
Yeah,
ghost stories on a submarine.
I think the UFO abduction story. I won't mention his name, but he swore, not just to me, because there was a group of us standing around, that he was abducted by a UFO at one point. And I'm like,
did he get probed?
I don't know. He doesn't even know everything that happened to him. But he, of course, that brought up a lot of conversation about UFOs and if they're real and if they're not. I'm not even sure if I knew what Area 51 was back then, but I thought that was pretty out there with the UFOs. But I will say he was a chief, but I won't say his name.
Could explain. It's probably when they did his spinectomy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just doesn't remember.
Maybe, he's a really nice guy. Actually, he wasn't anybody's chief back aft. He was somebody's chief up forward, and not sonar. But I can't even remember who he was a chief of. But anyway, that was, I thought, was really out there. But you do get into like those interesting conversations at sea. With, I learned while I was at sea that whenever you're talking about the fat boy, fat club that the Navy initiated as like an exercise program. What happened? They asked me, "Well, how tall are you?" And I said 6 foot, which I wasn't, but I knew that gave me an extra 20 something pounds, maybe 28 pounds, to keep out of the.
And nobody looked at you and said, "You're not 6 feet."
No, well, it was the corpsman, I think, was taking the information, and he wasn't measuring anybody. He was just saying, "Okay, what's your height?" And I'll tell him what my height is. And he did have a set of scales, so I got on that, but it was like bathroom scales. It wasn't like the real medical scales or anything like that. It was like bathroom scales, but that kept me out of the Navy exercise program, so that was good.
Oh, you missed all that, huh?
Yeah,
I was a regular member of that, to no one's surprise. It's like,
a plank owner.
yeah, might as well have been. I think our weird one was the ghost story, and I don't. For the life of me, to this day, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in paranormal crap. I just don't believe it. But for some reason, man, this story of this ghost in missile compartment upper level just messed with my head. I don't know why. I used to hate standing roving patrol, missile compartment upper level on the Midwatch. I don't know why. But man, they got me on that one. And it's like nobody hung themselves up here. There wasn't a murder in here. There's no reason for this, but man. Well,
they missed an opportunity if they didn't jump out from the corner and
boom,
because that would have got you, right?
Oh man, so we're sitting in dry dock. It wasn't a Midwatch. Well, it might have been one. I don't remember. Sitting in dry dock, working on stuff, and we had a problem with one of our pieces of gear that rapidly got outside of the fault trees and the fault tables and all that stuff, and we were into manual troubleshooting, which is what you enjoy. I mean, that's what everybody wants to do anyway.
Sure.
But after about an hour, this gets really old because now you're just chasing stuff, and so into the 7th or 8th hour, it really gets old because now it's cutting into rack time.
Yeah.
So sitting in dry dock, and the fire control system has these doors on the computer that open up and latch so that the rocking the ship doesn't slam the door shut and the likes of that. Well, I had to get another module to try to replace another one, but we're in dry dock, so I'm not going to latch the door open. I'm only going to be in here a second or two, right?
Right.
So I open the door. I'm kind of crouched down behind it, and Mitch walks in, and he's, we're all on edge. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And he sees the door open and says a really bad word, blank, 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 Bowman, leaving these blank, blankety blank doors open again. So he walks over to push the door shut.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm behind the door.
Yeah.
I'm leaping out from behind it, and I scream. He'll deny it to this day. He says it didn't happen, but he fainted.
Really?
So he's down this way, and I fall down laughing the other way. So we're feet to feet on the deck, just laughing lunatically. The launcher watch, Calvin Holder, turns around. He's like, both of my fire controlmen are on the floor laughing, and I have no idea why. I'll teach you to scare me, man. But yeah, you're right. People People should try to scare each other more on a submarine, not especially nowadays, I would think. I mean, they've taken all the fun out of it anymore.
Yeah.
You can't.
Well, it's kind of hard to sneak up on somebody. There's not that many nooks and crannies, that you can get some. But just telling a ghost story could freak people out.
Yeah, it really could. And especially if you did it right. And
Yeah.
it's like, man, no, I don't really want to hear that stuff. I mean, there was so much stuff that was weird, and of course the enjoyable conversations were the good ones. And man, I do miss those midnight. We had a couple of taboo subjects. We had stuff you couldn't talk about, and if you tried to talk about it, like we I don't know about you guys, but we would not talk religion at all.
I don't remember talking religion or politics really.
Well, we'd get into politics, but religion was just absolutely taboo. And I think the reason was because we had, I don't even know. I'm going to say this, and some people are going to get offended. And if you do, Tango Sierra. We had a bunch of thumpers.
Uh-huh.
I mean, and it was like, dude, and they weren't, the problem was they weren't all the same denomination thumper.
Mm-hmm.
So even they couldn't get along because, well, you're not right. We're right. That's, you got to do it our way or God's going to see you. Or,
yeah, we're going to heaven, but you're not.
Right.
No, right.
So the rest of us were like, oh, geez, Louise. They got the pornos banned though. So, so one of them complained to the captain.
Oh,
you know our captain, right?
Oh, that captain.
Yeah. One of them complained to him and says, so he has to come out with a POD note. He might have made the XO do it. I don't remember. So anyway, they came out with a note saying no more of this in the cruise lounge. No more. So my friend Eric went and he was running around the boat one day and I couldn't figure out what he was doing, but he was gathering up all the dime novels he could find and all the magazines he could find. Anything he could get his hands on. So a few hours later, I'm walking through wherever, and I hear this raucous laughter from the cruise lounge. I'm like, oh, I better go see what's going on because beats being on watch, right?
Yeah.
So I'm wandering the cruise lounge, and he's got the book, and he's reading the book aloud.
Uh-huh.
And he's got Bill Thayer standing there with the magazines, flipping through pages to find stuff that matches what he's reading and holding up the pages. Oh, needless to say, they got instructed not to do that anymore because it was, what's the word they use? Oh yeah, inappropriate.
Oh,
I'm like, well, so much for that First Amendment thing, right?
Yeah, we don't have that anymore.
No, certainly not back then.
Well, when you're in the military, you really don't have First Amendment rights anyway. So, I mean, at least, on a boat, you do what you're told, and that's it.
So you guys really never talked about the Russians at all? Huh? You never cared?
I think they did up forward. I think, I mean, I can remember when they stationed this section tracking party, and I'd go up there as AEA, and they would be talking about, oh, we have a contact, Tango Mark, blah, 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 blah. And it would be like a Victor or something like that. I can't remember the names of the Russian classes of the submarines, the stuff, but they all knew it. I mean, or at least they gave me the impression everybody knew it. And I'm just sitting here plotting dots, and I'm like, okay, well, okay.
Mark.
But Mark, what's that? I'll put that dot down there. There we go.
Yeah.
But
I don't know why we were so fascinated by them. I mean, I guess it's kind of a professional thing because, where they are the opponents, and if we ever have to go to war, we're going to go to war. So we're tooling around out somewhere, and I don't remember exactly where, but so we're tooling around, and they get a they call those things flash message, SSBN, flat red something alert. I don't remember what they called it. Come on, radioman, get in here. Where's Mike when I need him? some sort of alarm that a suspected Soviet SSBN was in a certain spot at a certain time, right? They picked it up on SOSUS or something.
Yeah.
Well, we had just done a weapon system readiness test, which is where we simulate a launch. So I was standing in control when the captain, not our captain, but the previous captain, walked in, looked at the chart and went, "Oh, guess we better clear data on this point, huh?" It's like, whoops. So it's like even the surface guys didn't even know what they sounded like. I mean, because it was like, clearly us. But oh well, I'm sure they got lectured about it when they got back.
Yeah.
But I wasn't part of that conversation because that would have been one of those taboo subjects, I suppose. I don't know. There were things I wanted to know. I mean, there were a lot of questions I had about the reactors, Brock. I'm fascinated by technology. I didn't want to be a nuclear engineer, but there were things I wanted to know, but nobody would just stare at you. It wasn't even we don't want to tell you or you can't know. It was just we couldn't believe that you would want to know kind of approach to things.
I could see that. I mean, I could understand that. I mean, if someone tried to ask me about how the reactor worked, I mean, honestly, I'd have trouble. I mean, I went to nuclear power school. I passed by the skin of my teeth, and we talked about that before. 2.5, and I passed, But I know, to shut it down, you put the poles in the holes. To get it going, you pull the poles out, I know there has something to do with boron in there, and I know there has something to do with enriched uranium-235 or something like that. Maybe I have to bleep that out, but I don't know if that's a secret or not. But anyway.
See, and that's the problem with this stuff is I don't even know I mean, I could sit here and talk to you about, fire control systems and how missiles fly from point A to point B and what happens when they get there, but I don't know if it's classified anymore or not. I walk over to the museum in Keyport and they got the whole thing on display now. It's like,
yeah.
Wait.
Our captain had told me one time that everything that we did back then was declassified because I was told him I was writing a book at the time. And I wanted to talk about certain things, and he says, well, I think it's all just declassified. So I still don't talk about them. But
well, see, that's part of the issue that I've run into in subvets and getting people to talk about their stories is because for some reason, the World War II guys, everything is declassified. I mean, there's
sure,
and their heroic stories and all that kind of stuff is great. I always feel like, and I always say this, look, we Cold War sailors, we did something pretty remarkable if you think about it, but it was so ingrained in us, the secrecy. I mean, we took the concept of the silent service to another level. I mean, we really did. Yeah. And it's remarkable to me how much we still function in that. 40 years after the end of the whole thing, 35 years after the end of the Cold War. I mean,
well, the silent service, I mean, it was just not just the boats themselves were silent,
right? But
that we were also silent, that we just didn't talk about it. You see memes all the time, on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, I was never there. It never happened. Blah, 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 blah,
Right. And yet we were, and it did. And that's part of that's part of the process with this. But it's so ingrained in us that we don't talk about it that I wonder if it's like the book Blind Man's Bluff comes out, and all of a sudden people are asking me, well, is any of this true? Well, how would I know? I have no idea if it's true or not. And I read Tom Clancy novels, and people go, well, is any of this true? Well, it is true that there was a submarine named USS Dallas. I mean, beyond how the heck would I know if it's true or not? I mean, I know what I saw. I know what I did. I know what I was involved with. but I'm still not comfortable because when I got out, Brock, I don't know about you, but when I got out, I had to sign multiple things, page 13 entries about what I could and couldn't do, couldn't say, where I could go. As far as I know, I still cannot travel to Russia or any former communist country, as far as I know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not anymore.
Yeah.
But I'd love to go on one of those Danube cruises to Hungary and Czechoslovakia or whatever it's called now and see Transylvania and that sort of stuff. As far as I know, I can't go. Nobody in the Navy ever sent me anything saying, hey, remember this thing you signed? It doesn't mean anything anymore.
Yeah, it's okay now. You could visit a communist country. But who knows, I just, even when I write, I try not to get specific, about missions or that's one reason I was saying before. I made it more about the people on board rather than the missions. And, let Tom Clancy, which I don't think he ever served on a submarine. Now there is another author that I see on Facebook a lot, that Michael D. Mercurio.
Right.
That he did serve on a submarine. He's wrote a lot of books. I've never read any of his books, but he's wrote a lot of books, mission type books. So,
which makes you wonder, doesn't it? I mean, because he has to come up with these ideas somewhere, and it's very possible that he's just making stuff up. But even Tom Clancy's stuff,
yeah.
John Pena Craven, who was the guy that basically invented special projects, the whole special he said in his biography, he wouldn't discuss any of it, but he said when he read The Hunt for Red October, the book, that he was appalled that they had a leak somewhere.
Oh, really?
And because you're right, Clancy had never served. So somebody was telling Clancy stuff, just enough stuff,
Yeah, feeding him information.
Right. And when that book came out, what was that, 84? I'm trying to remember exactly. We might have come out early. I know we had one copy on board. One.
Yeah. It's got passed around a lot.
Passed around. It got torn into pages. I mean, it was completely disassembled.
Yeah.
And you were passing pages left and right. It was a great book. Fantastic book. But it did leave you wondering, wait a second. And then as I got older and as I got, beyond my Navy years, I met Ken Sewell, who served on the Parchie. And he wrote books about the K-219 or 129K1, one of the K-129 and the Scorpion. He's one of those guys that's absolutely convinced that the Soviets sank the Scorpion in retaliation for us sinking the K-129. And, talking to the guy, I mean, I interviewed him on my radio show even. It was, there's a part of you that it's like the X-Files, man. I want to believe.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I wasn't there.
I don't know if we'll ever know, what happened. I know there are a lot of theories out there about Scorpion and Thresher. And I see a lot of discussions back and forth about, this person says they know about it and this person says they know about it. And of course, there are differing opinions, which happens a lot on the internet.
On a submarine.
Yeah, on a submarine too. Yeah. That was another thing. But when you have an argument on a submarine, it's not like you could look it up. You can't. Okay, well, I'll just go to the internet and I'll find out if there is fluoride in water. But
no, but we did have piping tabs.
Yeah, did have piping tabs, but did it show fluoride in y'all's water? I don't know.
I don't even know if our water was fluorinated or not. I know where the potable water tanks are, and I know how to shut off the vent valves.
Oh yeah, well,
that's a remarkable memory for me. So you kind of see the conversations where the conversations can go on a Midwatch, or not necessarily on a Midwatch, but usually on a Midwatch, because that's when you actually had time to talk about things. And some of them could get very interesting, entertaining, funny, bizarre. I mean, it was a weird thing. So what we'd like to hear from you is what's your strangest, funniest, saddest, most exciting, most interesting conversation on a Midwatch that you ever had. We still want to hear from you because, like we said, this only works if you guys, if listeners participate as well. You need to like, comment, and share the whole thing. That helps us and be a participant in it. We'd like to hear from you about what you want to talk about. I mean, we got room for more people if we can technically do it. So we'd like to hear that. I guess we got to respond to some of our comments on the first show.
Yeah.
Yes, I know it's Station the Maneuvering Watch. I knew that when I wrote the script. I knew that. I was going to throw my voiceover guy under the bus because he's a skimmer, but it's probably better if I just take the responsibility for that.
It don't feel bad. I mean, like my book was in second edition because I made so many mistakes in my first book. And submariners, God bless them, they pointed them out to me. So,
yeah, they will. And believe me, they pointed out that, Dave, it's man the maneuvering watch. Don't you know anything about it? Yes, I know that. I know that. But sometimes you have to, we said this in the first show. Sometimes we'll do things wrong on purpose just to see if you're paying attention.
Yeah, that's what we did. Yeah.
They would do that during your call. Did they ever do that to you in your calls? Tell you stuff that was intentionally wrong?
Oh, sure. Yeah, exactly. I mean, in Prototype, I could remember them asking a question, and I'm thinking, well, that is like really. And I sat there at the blackboard, and I can't remember what the question was. And finally, they gave me a break because I was stumbling and fumbling.
Well, they would do that to you on call boards. They'd look at you, you'd tell them what the answer was, and they'd look at you and go, "Are you sure?"
Oh, yeah, that's true. Are you positive?
It's like I was until you asked
yeah.
that. But anymore, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They want you to be sure. They want you to be, without a doubt, that's what it is.
But positive reinforcement, when you answer the question right, I mean, if your dog does something right, what do? You give it a treat.
Sure.
You don't look at your dog and go, "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
But,
come on.
Let's talk him out of the right answer.
Yeah. Do the poles really go into holes? I don't know.
Let us know what you think. You can drop us a line. You can comment on the. Look, we got Facebook, we got MeWe, we got YouTube. Assuming we haven't been banned from any of those.
Well, I don't think we have. Not military. No.
Right. So that would be a political discussion, but at any rate, assuming
we don't do those.
Right. Assuming we're still there, you can like, comment, please share us. Please talk to us. Let us know what's going on. It sounds like we're begging, and we are. I mean, for God's sakes, it's charity, people. We're not charging you anything here, so help us out. You can drop us an email. My email is dolphindave@slipperyfish.com. And
mine is Stephen T. Brock at yahoo.com. STEVENT Brock at yahoo.com. I don't know why I put that T in there.
Stephen the Brock.
Well, I should have just put Stephen Brock, because I opened this Yahoo account.
I love how you say that.
In the 90s or something like that, So, but I put the T in there, and everybody forgets the T. So there's so many emails I don't get because they forget the T. Doctor appointments and things like that. I'm like,
oh my God.
So Stephen T. Brock.
Fix that if I were you.
Well, yeah, maybe I need another email address. I think I'll probably get one. I think I'll call it something else.
Yeah, we can work on that. So there you go. So you can get a hold of us. You can talk to us individually. You can chat with us. I saw there was chats on MeWe.
Yeah, you can chat.
Mostly people bitching about the fact that I said man the maneuvering watch instead of station.
Well, that's what submariners do. We correct people. By the way, is it submariners or submariners?
Oh, Lord.
Oh, that's another question. That's for another day.